Today there are over 15 modern cities in India. What you see here are few areas in modern Hyderabad today. Mumbai is now full of skyscrapers. Former slums are diminishing. Cities such as Hyderabad and Bangalore of India or Sao Paulo of Brazil now look more modern than cities in former colonists. Gulshan, part of Dhaka, Bangladesh, which used to be a part of India, has become truly modern. There is of course a long way to go for India, with no help or reparation from the UK. For example, after arriving in New Delhi, stay in Aero City, and then stay in rich areas of New Delhi, you will see a modern city. But if you stay in Old Delhi, or poor areas of New Delhi, you see the chaos and poverty, which is a British product. This video will show how poverty of India started, how Indians are slowly clearing up the mess left by British, with no help from UK. Soon, Indian streets will be more like streets in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Some tourists say, Sri Lanka is second only to Singapore in terms of clean streets in Asia.
Face Mall also located here, and I like 5-star, really amazing hotels. All of them are reside exactly on this neighborhood. It will be super tour around Colombo trip.
Yes, I hope you guys watched our first impression about Sri Lanka, Colombo. We were just amazed about this country, and now I understand like Sri Lankan people a little bit angry when people compare between like India, because this is like totally different country. Maybe some parts the same, like tuk-tuk, maybe some kind of food, but it's totally different, like very organized, clean road.
Before World War II, South Korea was equally poor due to similar circumstances. That time, there was not a single high-rise building you see today in Seoul. Then, America helped develop South Korea, under the Marshall Plan, which was a grant, free money, not a loan. Indians are now developing UK also. For example, foreign direct investment, FDI, in UK by Indian entrepreneurs is over $19 billion, whereas British FDI in India is a puny $2 billion. Getting back to the story, this is what you see when you browse internet about India, poverty, slums, and chaos. But the issue is that is British left India with, not something Indians did. Before British came to India and pat the back of Maharajas, India was the most developed and richest country in the world, as nicely narrated in the following YouTube video.
1900, India's share in the world's economy was an astounding 27%, more than all of Europe combined. 250 years later, India's share had dropped to less than 3%, and its people were left impoverished. What happened? Strap in, adventurers. We're about to dive into a dark and messy history.
Some British argue that British unified the country. This is a valid argument to some extent. Others argue India also had unifiers, good and bad, such as Emperor Ashoka, who introduced Buddhism to many countries and spread the message of Dhamma. Digression. Bit about Ashoka.
It was in this new station that Ashoka fell in love with Devi, the daughter of a trader. Interestingly, she was a member of the Sakya clan, the clan of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha himself. It is widely thought that she was a Buddhist upon bearing Ashoka his 2 children, their son Mahendra and their daughter Sanghamitra. This relatively peaceful life would come to an end when in 274 BC, Emperor Bindusara passed away.
After the death of his father, Ashoka wanted to unify the whole country. Then he invaded the kingdom of Kalinga, which resulted in enormous carnage.
After the final battle, the victorious monarch stood amongst his dead and dying foes on the battlefield. Most monarchs would have simply rejoiced in the grim victory, but Ashoka in this moment felt horror and remorse. It ended up being the key moment of his life.
Then, Ashoka accepted Buddhist principles, nonviolence, and sent missionaries to spread teachings of Buddha. During this period, Ashoka's nickname, Chanda Ashoka, was changed to Dharma Ashoka,
Ashoka's firstborn son. In 249 BC, Mahendra journeyed to Sri Lanka, then called Tamrapani, at the invitation of King Devanampiya Tissa, an admirer of Ashoka and a man who wished to learn more of Buddhist principles.
Since then, Sri Lanka not only practiced Theravada Buddhism to this date, but also introduced Theravada Buddhism to Thailand and Burma. In fact, Buddha's day, known as Vesak Day, is heavily celebrated in Sri Lanka with lantern lightings. Sri Lanka also display Vesak pandals with hundreds of patterns second to Vesak Day and Christmas lightings in few countries. Having said all that, we must admit that, after giving independence to former colonies, UK has become a highly diverse country, accepting immigrants and refugees from countries beyond former colonies. In fact, current PM of UK, Rishi Sunak, is of Indian origin, and Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is of Pakistani origin, something we cannot take for granted. After British left India, and lost Indian income, Britain is getting poorer, and India getting richer. Currently the GDP of India is higher than that of UK. In terms of per capita GDP, with no help from the West, India has long way to go. India's FDI in UK is $15 billion, whereas British FDI in India is below $2 billion. To analyze how Indians became entrepreneurs in UK as well as in India, let us start from the time of Mughal occupation.
After nearly 2 centuries of Mughal rule, India was still a dominant economic power, responsible for 27% of global trade. There's a simple reason for that. See, the Mughals had a foreign place of origin, Fergana, but they did not repatriate India's resources to their original homeland. India may not have been Fergana, but it had become their new home, and so their loyalties and energies were owed solely to India. Meanwhile, the British ruled India as disconnected tyrants. The bulk of the revenue from India wasn't reinvested in India. No. It was extracted and repatriated to their distant, foggy homeland. How much? Modern economists have estimated that the total amount of wealth that the British extracted from India is in the ballpark of $43 trillion. Million preventable deaths were caused by famines. That's millions more than those killed under Stalin or Mao, and that's 5 times more than the Holocaust. The British were directly responsible for this. They mass exported Indian foodstuffs to Britain and other countries in Europe, even during drought periods. Food in India became too expensive for peasants to afford.
After the Indian Green Revolution, India is now one of the top food exporting countries in the world. Now getting into the IT revolution of India, in 1984, the Indian government launches the National Policy on Information Technology. This followed by the liberation of Indian economy in 1991, leading to a boom in the IT sector. In 1998, India launched its first software technology park and special economic zones. What about the industrial sector? Before British occupation, India had better ships used for trade between Middle East and Southeast Asia. Let us analyze manufacturing, starting with relevant part of the video, the unmaking of India.
Colonial rule often point to the railways as some sort of extravagant counter to the argument of extraction and divestment. But as modern scholars have pointed out, the railways serve as evidence for how exploitative and inefficient British investment in India really was. First, there's the bold assumption that Indians would not have built railways, like the Japanese or others, either by importing the technology or by developing their own. India had been far too advanced and cutting-edge a civilization to not keep up had it been given the opportunity.
At this time, we do not need to dispute that claim. Despite missing the period of industrial revolution due to British occupation, India has already passed UK in space exploration and in manufacturing of high-speed trains, Vande Bharat. Paved highways and expressways in India is in the same ballpark as United States and China, and UK is not. UK and USA each have 3 metros, whereas 15 cities in India has superb clean metros, unlike New York subway. Let us listen to the commentary by a Korean lady about Delhi Metro.
This is India. 진짜. 와. 들어가면은 건물들도 다 높고 크고 와 진짜 인도 오기 전에 상상하던 인도가 아니에요. 절대. 장애인을 위한 따로 있고 냄새도 안 나고 쾌적해요. 좌석도 한국처럼 이렇게 돼 있어.
Even Dhaka, Bangladesh, which used to be a part of India, has super clean and safe metro system that no city in the United States can match. In conclusion, for the information of stereotypes, when given equal opportunity in the United States, here are average family income of immigrants from countries mentioned in this video, with Indians ranking number 1. This situation has nothing to do with genetics, but mostly has to do with how easy money they had back home, education, and entrepreneurship they possess.